Hello, everyone. Well, today I want to try to put together several things that I'm not even sure how to title this. It's like all these different aspects are coming together right now for me that I'm seeing in different formats, and yet they are all really talking about the same source and the same dynamic that is going on the planet at this time. To begin, today I came across this video by Danny Wilton that, as many of you know, I love his videos and how he puts things together. And of course, his main theme is the Orion Nebula, which is part of my main theme. And so I came across this video that I'm going to be embedding below the video you're listening to now. And it prompted me to talk a little bit more about the relationship between the Orion Nebula and the Attasic universe. In fact, I'm not sure how much I've actually linked them together on a talk video. I think I did on the last video I made of the Attasic universe, but I'm not sure because I just can't remember all this stuff. It's coming in too fast. So anyway, what I want to just accent here is that in Danny's video, he's talking about the Orion Nebula, specifically the trapezium, that point that within that is where Thoth says is the the capstone, the Eye of Ra with the Telesakara capstone over it. When we're speaking, of course, here in symbolic terms, there's not a big old capstone sitting up there. But I'm not going to go into detail on that because I've talked about it and written about it so much. You can, Google me and find more about that. But so the trapezium is where the Eye of Ra is. And Rigel, let me show you a picture here. So here we have a map, and you can see the Orion Nebula listed there. And you can see how Rigel is on the boundary of it, along with some other stars. You see Betelgeuse on the other side. Rigel and Betelgeuse, though they've spoken about Betelgeuse quite a bit, not anywhere near as much as he's spoken about Rigel. And I'm using the words he's spoken. We're talking about a Thothic streaming here, but it's just so much easier to say that. So he's always stated to me that the whole system connecting really the whole Orion constellation is geared to the dynamics of the creation of this universe. Rigel is our home star, and I say our. Many souls on this planet are from many star systems, but the Earth and those who came originally to found it from the lotus and down from the lotus reality through the stem of the blossom into the physicality of Earth, those come from Rigel, and the whole energy planetary genius core comes from Rigel. And Rigel sits on the boundary line, as you can see, that contains the Orion Nebula. And of course, we also have the three stars in there too. It doesn't seem to be showing them right here. But over here, I'm going to show you another picture. Okay, you can see Orion's mini belt. I don't know why they call it a mini belt. Is it not the big one? Not sure about that. But anyway, we have over here the trapezium. And that's where the Eye of Ra is. And you can see a larger fisheye of that trapezium. So in Danny Wilton's video that I'm referring to, he's saying that the trapezium is an opening to another universe, a portal to another universe. And these two universes are exchanging information. Well, actually, that's correct. But the big importance of it is it's not just any other universe. It is the Attasic universe. And the Attasic universe is a special kind of universe. Are there more than one? I am assuming there's more than one of anything when we're speaking about the cosmos. But I do know that for our holographic reality cosmic experience, that the Attasic universe is the mother. It is what gives us our whole holographic experience. It's like through the eye that is connecting the two. It's like the eye is bringing through the sight, the hologram that creates this universe that we are in now. Way over here, you're not seeing it here, but in our whole perspective. So, because it's the Attasic universe that is being connected through there, it doesn't act like just any universal connection. Again, it is the mother. We receive the sight through the mother. We receive the gestating plasma that comes through from the mother to us, that creates our embryonic state for development, because we still are in an embryonic state. And it brings us through, I say us, not only the earth, but everything in our holographic universe. That means all the components of this hologram that relate to the human experience. Now, this is a tough one, because we could say, well, what about the four-eyed people eaters that reside way over there on this other system? Well, they're not in our holographic universe, because the only way we can see them is when they know how to come into our holographic universe. So, the reptilians, the greys, and all these creatures, they're coming into our system, but they're not a part of this holographic universe. Even if they're from a star system that we can look out there and see and say, well, that's part of our universe because we can see it out there. But see, it's just not that easy, because what we can see is a hologram of our perceptual reality. And we've already proven with quantum science that when you observe something, you change it. I'm not going to keep going on down that road right now. That's a whole nother topic. But the point is that understanding how the dynamics work between the mother and the child, the Attasic and our universe, and the Neutra universe that connects the two, is really at the core of understanding our spiritual evolution, right down to what's going on our planet right now. And that's kind of difficult to imagine, because, one is so vast and the other is so personal here with us now. But there are absolute connections and links. And I don't know them. Yeah, I can see a little bit about them, but I just know that they're there, and they're absolutely all-encompassing. That is something that comes to me very, very strongly when I connect to the Thothic streaming. I'm one little person, and I'm battling my own health tribulations and whatever, so I'm not privy, I just couldn't be, to the immense picture that we're just peeking into now. Not just me, all the new age scientists and all the people that are coming forward now to look at it, other channels, whatever. We're all just taking little peeks, and I'm no different in that regard. However, my peak is what I'm sharing with you now. And there's some aspects of what I'm seeing that I've not heard about before. But that's why I'm so excited about Danny's material. He's not a channel. He's not a source translator or any of that. Well, I shouldn't say that. Maybe he is. But I mean, what he's demonstrating in his videos is coming through keen insight and observation, coupled with his own obvious internal intuition, which means, connection to source, like we all have. Kind of reminds me of what William Buehler, how he works, because he says, oh, I'm not psychic, I'm not a channel, and I can't see anything, and I can't hear anything, but look what he does. My gosh, what he puts together. And Danny's like that too. He has his own style, but it's a similar way that he works. And his work is really excellent from my perspective, because my perspective aligns with his. So that's why I think it's so great. In any case, I go back to this because it's just such a profound thing, even though I can't sit down and write 5 or 6 books on the subject. I know it's there, and it's opening up to us. Because what is happening now, since we started receiving direct mother's milk from the Attasic universe through the neutral universe, and that was in May 29th of what? Was it 2015 or 2016? I can't even remember now. I think it was 2015. And we're receiving the direct signals now in a way that this Earth has not received them, well, since, the lotus descended and certain periods started happening then, the early time. So, and in a way, it's absolutely unique because we're in another position of orientation, high energetic orientation than we were when we first received it on planet Earth. These things are shifting. When we rotate around the sun, that's one thing, but they're discovering now that the whole galaxy is doing this torus rotation around another kind of an axis moving through space. Well, that rotation is the biggie, and that is the one that puts us in different position always from source, from the Attasic universe, which is its source. Is it God? No, but it is the pinnacle of our ability to touch the face of God, so to speak. And so we're always in a new position with it. So what's old can never be new again. It can help us to find that path, but it is not something we want to return to. We're headed forward, not backward. And when we align, as we are aligning more and more through the mother's milk, that's what Thoth calls it, with the Attasic universe, our mama, we are then able to receive new encodings, new signals, new light language, new, based on universal, eternal principle that was received by us in ancient times. But that universal principle is only the foundation. Important, but just the foundation. What we're receiving now is a new Templar, a new Templar of our whole universal experience. We can say, well, we're just, these little bitty human beings on this planet. Yeah, we have souls, and our souls are going to go on to something bigger. But what does it really matter? What does Earth really matter in the bigger picture when you're looking at all these stars and all this cosmos and all these other worlds? But you see, since all is one in the ultimate sense, the Earth really matters. Humanity really matters in the bigger picture. And in addition to that, Thoth has inferred to me, although he's never given me, a complete story on it yet, he has inferred to me that we are a special point in this holographic field that we share with other beings that are related to us, that the Earth sits on this special point. This whole thing about us being transported with Venus from Rigel into this particular galaxy. Why this galaxy? So far away from Rigel. For what? These questions still loom in my brain because Thoth has never given me the entire answers to these things. But he has shown me that there's a distinct purpose, that in this galaxy as we see it, in this point where Earth is, and of course that's changing in the rotation all the time around the torus, but it's not changing in respect to the toroidal force field. It's holding that same point. It's just moving that point and moving it. But it's locked into that point. And we're talking about a node. Maybe I should say a node. And that node is extremely important for the resolution of this universal movement that we are experiencing as a whole. I don't want to get too off topic. Well, I don't want to get any off topic, but into too many subtopics, let's say. But I do want to read you about the Rex Mundi, a Metatronic view of the King of the World. It's very short. I'm just going to read just part of it. Rex Mundi, that mysterious esoteric figure with whom the Templars and other esoteric orders of the past were fascinated, is viewed in the Akashic Library of Thoth to be a much more expanded dynamic than the Satan, Christ personas, the two polarized views, that have been given about Rex Mundi. Because Rex Mundi is seen as the devil, and he's also seen as the sort of a Christic figure, depending upon who you ask. Followers of the Rennes le Chateau mystery and the recent Da Vinci Code have also included Rex Mundi in their esoteric vocabulary. An author going by the name of Kronos Apollonios has written on his website, quote, "The idea of Rex Mundi also relates to the axis mundi, which for these concerns is both the axis of precession and the Earth's magnetic axis. There is the same implication in that there may be in Tolkien's drawing of the Gate of Moria. There is no shortage whatsoever of archaic figures of Christ and many other personas who seem to be holding their staff at an exact angle, which the true magnetic north polar axis deviates from the geographical polar axis, concerns which may have entered C.S. Lewis's first book in the Chronicles of Narnia series in a whimsical and casual yet complex manner, the form of the appearance of Father Christmas. Kronos Apollonios, now I'm talking here, Kronos Apollonios further gives his research around the phoenix rising from the ashes, the alchemical symbol, in context with the axis of precession, in which I see in direct association with Rex Mundi on the cross of light, suspended on the world and also embracing the world. As many of you know who have followed my material, I see Orion as the key gateway for the universal continuum and indeed for the Earth's formation within that continuum as a planetary realm. In this latter regard, the point of creation radiating from the blue star Rigel. Now, yes, the Earth's formation radiates from the blue star Rigel. But what I'm not saying here, and I want to take it further for a minute so we can follow the context. Rigel is the portal for Earth, but the Orion Nebula, which Rigel guardians along with these other stars, is the font for the Attasic universe that creates all the stars and all the planets and all the Earth because it creates the intelligent plasmic field that generates this and decides how this is going to be mapped out. Now, when I say decides, once the foundational decision has been made, then the individual collective groups of souls, such on planet Earth or whatever, form their own holographic overlay to that. I won't go on, but I just wanted to make that point. My good friend Rami Saji in Jordan occasionally incorporates in his work some of my Akashic material as a basis for his research and own intuitive perspectives. On a page in his website, he writes about the star trinity of Orion, the Pleiades, and Sirius, based on my material in my old Source Temple Doors archives. He also gives some interesting information that I feel relates to Thoth's perspective on Rex Mundi, and I'm quoting from Rami now. The Orion constellation Al-Jabbar occupies the midway of the heavens during the winter solstice of each year, and during this time Orion takes a standing position in the night sky at midnight. It is suggested that in the winter solstice the energies in the region will be at peak emission. This occurs during each winter solstice within the period of grace or golden mean, within which the period of grace or golden mean is reached. This grace period was also called the Orion Gate. Now, back to me, I'm saying, according to my insights, Thoth has written in his Akashic library, the esoteric figure of Rex Mundi both masks and contains within it the universal dynamic of awakening in the human being to his/her pure gem body, which is the complete hologram of gnosis, contained within all substance and being in the universes created by the Elohim. That's the creational lords. That's a figurative speech, but it points to a dynamic. In this context, as Rex Mundi, both twin flame light bearers, Christ and Lucifer, are combined in a non-dualistic whole cosmology of perfection and light, suspended upon the cross of immolation in the flame of burning love, offering eternal regeneration of the light geometries as they become more and more brilliant in the fire of love. This is the greatest act of the phoenix, that through the cyclic movement of the spiral, one comes to the moment of awareness that the spiral is only the springboard of immediate and complete translation of the form and consciousness into the torus of perpetual harmony, where no ebb and flow is necessary in order to sustain presence. Now, I'm just going to stop just for a moment here about the light bearer twin flames. This is a whole big topic, and someone warned me the other day, oh, you mustn't associate Lucifer with Christ, or the Luciferians are going to come after you because that's evil, and that Satan's, the demons are going to be released from hell, all and all and all. So, I just want to state that I'm not saying that Lucifer is a good guy in the sense of the fallen reality spectrum of that dynamic. We have problems with that. Obviously, we have all this quote unquote evil and stuff going on that came from the quote unquote fall of Lucifer as a satanic being, although Thoth relates Lucifer and Satan is really two different dynamics, but they are related. However, when we speak of the twin flame light bearers, Christ and Lucifer, we're speaking of high ordinance archangelic energy. And from the Lucifer light bearer, by the way, that's what that means, there was a cord or I don't know what you want to call it, particle, pixel, you can choose your word, that fell, that became corrupted in its light program. And that's a whole nother story. I'm not getting into it here, but because I mentioned it and someone said, oh, you got to be careful doing that. And I can understand. Some people reading that might be, oh my God, she's worshiping the devil, So I wanted to make it clear that that's not what I'm talking about here. It's a much bigger picture. Okay, we're going to move on. Thoth's record also tells us that the human form is present in this reality which we claim as real, where universal streaming lines of creational light language intersect. One of these intersections, out of this intersection, not only does the soul express its forms, various ones, on multiple levels of creation, but also its worlds and associate accommodations for other living forms, such as plants and animals. Each organized system is brought into form through streaming lines of light language, but the human being and all beings that are generating generated from the Kadmon template, from whence our Adam Kadmon template is spawned, sets the stage, the arena, for the world in which the planet and its nature inhabitants. I'm sorry, I'm having difficulty reading. I have cataracts, and this is very tiny print. It's not that I can't read, I just can't see. Okay, let me start that over again. For the world in which the planet and its nature inhabitants gather and are formed from resonant intersecting creational streamings. The positioning and geomagnetic properties of an ensouled planet are key to its Rex Mundi dynamic, for it is from and to this point in space-time that the forms take shape in the physical and evolve as the soul moves through its procession in development. Rex Mundi, the king of the world, is also the bearer of the cup of transfiguration, in which the human being moves through stages of his own duality until he reaches a platform in which he assumes in a specific and dedicated way the wound of the world. Through this embodiment he becomes the wounded king, healer of Grail lore, whose wound is born for the world. Through his glorious act of crucifixion and transfiguration upon the cross of this gnosis, which has become his bodhisattva, I can never say that word, sorry, bodhisattva vow, he heals others who touch his wounds of light. It is then that the wounded healer is transformed into Rex Mundi, for he has now overcome his own creation, the world, to be exalted in the phoenix flame of pure illumination. What sets him free? His becoming with complete presence the gnosis that all wounds are only love longing to be illumined in the heart. And wounds have to do also with what we call evil and all the little nasty stuff that's going on. And we go, oh, how terrible, how terrible. But, these are wounds. And they don't need destroying, vanquishing in the sense of killing or tearing apart or stomping on or whatever. They don't need that. No, because they're wounds. They need to be healed. They need to be transformed into enlightened flesh. And if we don't get that, we're just going to keep on wounding ourselves. It's like we keep stabbing ourselves in the foot, because it's all part of us. The cosmic world dynamic of Rex Mundi is an important aspect of the solar mysteries. The solar mysteries trace the soul's development and evolution through the rays of the great solar cosmos, which is the center of the creative font from which all star suns gain their presence of living light, or what we know in our world myth as angelic beings and realms, which would also include related categories such as the jinn. Now, let me stop for a minute and say that all star suns, Thoth says, are actually just spheres that contain or are generating the angelic living lights, which are what we call angels, archangels, and all these other categories. Maybe some we don't even know about, so we haven't been able to categorize. But the angelic beings, they're in all of these stars that we see. But actually, that is the holographic view of what is in the Attasic universe that's spewing out into our reality. So the solar mysteries trace the soul's development and evolution through the rays of the great solar cosmos, which is the center of the creative font. Well, the great solar cosmos would be an inscription upon the Eye of Ra. It's not in the Attasic universe. You could almost say nothing is in the Attasic universe, because we think of things, energies, all these things. The Attasic universe is. What it rays out through the Eye of Ra is creation. So the great solar cosmos, as I'm seeing it now, is an inscription, a light inscription upon the Eye of Ra. Again, we're speaking symbolically here because there's just no other way to deal with things that are just so beyond our perceptual reality. The light language streamings which intersect the Adam Kadmon, and from whence our humanity is formed, are issued from the constellation of Orion. I would say now the Orion Nebula, but I wasn't getting so close into it in those days. It wasn't that long ago, but it was some years ago that I wrote this. Regardless of from what star tribe that particular incarnating soul may originate. Thus, Rex Mundi is very much an Orion figure in that he, i.e., this universal dynamic, strikes the balance of the gate of Orion in the universe. In the 21st century, it is my belief that we are being infused with the codes of the New Earth hologram, which will enable us to more fully enter and receive the higher light language of the Rex Mundi dynamic. It is the 5 crystalline geometries now coming into our realm and being that offer us the next state of evolution through the light language they contain in their crystal codes. With the assistance of the matrix angels, we will be better prepared to fully receive, for full receipt, for the new birth that awaits us. So, if you can understand all of what I read so poorly, and this is my little emblem of the Rex Mundi. You can see how this relates to what we were saying, though I hope you can. So I'm going to kind of move on to part 2 of all of this because it is related. But I'm going to start with a bear story. That's right, not B-A-R-E, but B-E-A-R. I live, of course, in Crestone, Colorado, here at the foot of the crest of the stone. This is the whole the crown chakra of the Ascension Temple, the whole San Luis Valley, or most of it. And the focal point here is this crest in the stone mountain, which is actually Challenger Peak of the Sangre de Cristo mountain range. And within that crest in the stone is both Thos retreat, that means an energetic place of his soul referencing for the planet. They're one of 2, the others at Lake Titicaca. And it is also the location of the sacred On, which is now thresholding within this place. We're speaking of a slightly interdimensional difference, but not a full dimensional difference where these are located. I mean, you couldn't like dig a hole in there and find the chambers. No, but they're there, and they're very much touching our reality zone. They're not far removed like a completely another dimension. So anyway, that's the short version. There's a whole bunch about it, and you can find it on just about any of my weblogs. So back to my bear story. The San Luis Valley, according to what I've read, has the highest concentration of wildlife in the continental USA. That, of course, does not include Alaska. And it's just a small area, relatively speaking, although the valley is 72 miles wide. But most of the wildlife is up toward the mountains on both sides of this range here and over on the other ranges that surround it. So we have a lot of critters here. And I just love sitting here and looking out my glass doors here in my office and watching the wildlife, because I have deer herds that come and just lie down right out there. Just I can count the hairs on the head. And they're just in my yard, just a few feet away from me. And if I go out, they get up and go, "Oh, do you have a grape?" I'll admit I feed them grapes now and then. But they came before I started that. And then I have little bunny rabbits hopping around. Well, one, my resident bunny rabbit that I see almost every day. A squirrel that I see almost every day. There's a coyote that I used to see a lot, but I think he's moved into higher territory for the summer. I bet I'll see him more in the winter again, because he has a little path that he goes back and forth. There's a hummingbird, and there's all kinds of other animals loping around and trotting around, and I just sit here and I watch them all. However, I've yet to see a cougar or a bear pass my path, and they are here, though, which brings us to the bear stories. So Bears are, especially when they wake up after hibernation and they're hungry, they come down in here and they know that we have a lot of food in our garbage bins and pails and kitchens and whatever. And it's not uncommon. It's not everyday occurrence by any means, but it's not uncommon to see a bear foraging around in the garbage dumps and the not dumps, but the bins, even down close to town, or on somebody's personal garbage pickup thing, knocking it over and finding what they want to eat in there. Like I said, it doesn't happen every day. It's newsworthy, but it happens. And so recently, someone posted on the Crestonian Facebook group that they had a bear enter their window at night. See, they have the glass open, but the screen, and of course, the bear just goes right through the screen to get in their house. And they were in the bedroom sleeping, and here comes this bear into their house, and they get up and whack it with a pillow, and it leaves. And so these things happen. And there's one bear I think that's kind of bothering us right now. However, everything has a reason, and it all kind of fits together at times more than at other times. So Bill and Edie, William Bueller and his partner Edie Cooper, who work with the Synergy work, and they have their own place. They just recently rented a new place. It's very close to mine. And Bill has been doing his work, almost as long as I have. And so, he has a lot of his energy dynamics. It's like he's carrying a temple around with him. So wherever he goes and he sets up his experience in that place. And Edie too, she has so many beautiful sacred objects and crystals, and they just recently set them all up. Well, a few weeks ago, so did I. I finally got all the matrix set up in my house with the crystal skulls and all the other crystals and the sacred objects from all over the world that I have. But I too carry that matrix within me because I've been doing it for so long. It has to do with, consistency. And so we carry it with us when we've just done it for so long. So that said, where I live is a temple. Where Bill lives is a temple. Bill and Edie, they have a temple there. It's not, holier than thou temple. It's simply an energy matrix that contains these sacred energies that we brought with us into this space, and we've also brought with us objects that hold that energy that we've carried with us around wherever we've been. So that said, we have two really dynamic thresholds going on here in our houses. They're only a few streets apart now. So a few nights ago, Bill and Edie were watching television, and they had their headsets on. They wear these big old headsets they can plug both of them in, so they don't bother the neighbors or anything, and they're listening to their show. Actually, they have, like I do, they have a computer but it will plug into their big television screen, which I don't have. So anyway, they were Netflixing along and sitting there, and they couldn't hear much of anything but what was coming in their headphones. And all of a sudden, Edie heard something else, some other noise, and she just turned her head to the side. Now they're in a big room, but the kitchen is part of the room. It's the back part, and there's a kitchen door right there. She turned her head, and not 5 feet away from her was the rump of a huge bear waddling out of her back door. Thank God it wasn't coming in. It had already come in, and she didn't even know it, or Bill. And while they were sitting there blissfully listening to Netflix, and it had just turned around, and it was walking back out again. Well, this is quite an experience for both of them. But Bill immediately knew that there was more to it than that because of their whole setup and what they do and the energy about it. Now you could say, well, bears have been coming into other people's houses and they've been the garbage dump, and so it was just one of those things because their door hadn't been solidly closed. You really got to actually lock your doors when it's bear season because they could come in. Bears can open refrigerator doors. The ones around here, they know about refrigerators. They'll come in and just open the fridge, and see what's in there. So you could say that's that, but Bill and I both knew there was more to it. And we don't know really the other person that had the bear come in their house. there might have been a reason for that too that we don't know about. I mean, a reason, a beyond the norm reason. But for us, we recognized that there was something here that needed to be looked at. Now, I'm not going to go through all the details of it, but had to do with bare totemic energy, which is kind of an obvious one, and some other things. But more than that, the surprise came in when I asked Thoth about it, and he said, you need to understand where the bear entered the house if you position Bill's house inside the body of Osiris. And I went, what? I mean, all of a sudden, little bells went off, and I went, ooh, that sounds interesting. And so he told me to look at Schwaller-Lubitz, I think is his name, depiction of the body of man, which is the body of Osiris, and how it relates in, he first showed it how it related if you superimposed it, a skeleton rather, or a body over the temple of Osiris in Abydos. And from there, like Danny Wilton and others have taken it much further. They've superimposed it into cathedrals and all kinds of things, and it fits. It just fits with all the sacred geometry stuff. So I was very interested in this because this opened a much bigger door. Because then Thoth said, he continued, because I actually asked him to at that point. It was like, okay, give me more. And he showed how my place was, like Bill's house was identified as being in he kept saying the thorax, but I think the chest area, and mine in the head. Well, if you line us up on a map, I don't really think it could be. I'd have to look at a map and see. It's close that mine would be in the head and his would be in the heart cavity, the chest cavity. But I don't know that really relates, because if you're looking at sacred geometry from a higher level, it doesn't necessarily have to flow on a physical direction. It certainly does many times, but it's not a necessity. But I think it might in this case. So anyway, the point is, he said that it's not just that. He said you can take the body of Osiris in that context, a geophysical, a sacred geometry body of Osiris placed on a geophysical position anywhere here in the main area of the Ascension Temple grid. Almost the whole valley, not quite, but almost the whole valley is within it. But the Crestone Baca area with the sand dunes is the main area. And he said if you took the body of Osiris, you could position it in just about, various positions, and you would see how these energies intersect and are working to build this crucible that relates to the axonal lines of the chakras in the body. And it's bringing through specific crown chakra ascension temple dynamics. Now, why just crown chakra? Well, because right now, with everything that's going on, it's the crown chakra activating these new formats. It's actually giving it to the base chakra, the Hawaiian Islands. And then it's going to form an arc between the crown and the base. And that arc is creating this rainbow bridge that feeds all the other ascension temple grid chakras in between. So it's not like it's running from the head, to the third eye, to the throat, to the heart, all the way down to the base. It's literally creating an arc from the head to the base. And then through that arc, a rainbow arc, it is feeding and will suddenly trigger all these other chakras. And it'll be a domino effect at that point, beginning with the third eye Well, actually, it's going to begin with the third eye on one point, and the what would be the next one from the base would be the navel, and it would just run. In other words, it's going to run from both ends of the candle. And where is it going to meet? It's actually going to meet in the solar plexus. You would think the heart, but no, it's going to meet in the solar plexus because this is an electrical energy. It's a solar energy. But that's a whole other topic, really, so I'm not going to go into it too deeply. But the point is that right now, in this area of the crown chakra, these bodies of man are forming. And really, they're the Osiris bodies, or whatever you want to call it. And eventually, I mean, you could do this with just about any place on the planet. You could align this Osiris body with specific, not any place on the planet, but with specific places all over the planet. That's really what I was trying to say. However, the difference is that right now it's being used in a specific way here in this area. And so back to the bear walking through the door. He said, if you see which direction the bear walks through the door, you can understand where this energy, this totemic bear energy, which is also related to Ursa Major, which is an important factor in the whole pantheon of our cosmos. I mean, it's not just Orion. There's other things going on out there, although that's the main crucible. And certainly Ursa Major is a major one. So this hasn't been all formulated yet. Bill's working on it. I'm going to see what more I bring through. But the point is, I just wanted to put it in right now because the body of Osiris, you could say, is the working metabolism coming out of the Attasic universe that seeds and activates, enlivens, creates intellectual function within what we call human beings. You see, we've isolated ourselves with that terminology to say human being. On planet Earth, there are human beings. Human beings aren't anyplace else but on planet Earth. We're isolated to Earth. Earth is this one little planet among all these planets and stars, little dot, insignificant. So as we isolate all these things, yes, they have their specific light signatures and whatever, but we're isolating them too much. We're saying they're just shut off from everything else, and they're not. So if you see that as souls, we have chosen to incarnate into this particular dynamic, but this dynamic serves the greater principle. So the body of Osiris enlivening and activating the human condition as it does with our kindred, the luminaries on other enlightened ultra-terrestrial beings and whatever on other spheres within that share our greater holographic view, it becomes a much larger dynamic. I would really like to conclude by stating something that brings it all together in a very simple way, but I don't think that I can. I mean, I just, sometimes it overwhelms me when I try to do that. And yet I know that there's a way. I just haven't probably progressed to that place that I can actually utter those words. So let me just pause a moment. In my next talk video, unless something else comes up that I feel needs to supersede it, I'm going to be talking about the light languages and how they relate to all of this and what is going on now with them and the changes in the light language and what is a light language and all of this, So I'm going to kind of go into that realm, which relates, of course, to this and everything else I've been talking about, actually. But with the Attasic universe, we just need to realize that we're not that far removed from it. Again, we practice isolation because isolation, we feel, gives us clarity. If we can pinpoint something, if we can hold it down and examine it and label it, then we feel so much better. But actually, we're just tying ourselves into tiny little knots, you know? So the idea is to really just be in presence every day and just open oneself and to say, you know, I have the Attasic universe within me. I carry my own mother. I birth her every day, especially if I'm aware and I live in presence. And so it is.